First thing we do is just like literally go over to our Adlumin. This is what it looks like from the get-go.
Oh, there's our portal.
Yeah, there's the dashboard, there's the portal. What we're going to do is go over to analysis, and depending on how much data, like how large, let's say your Adlumin instance is, and this applies to pretty much every SIEM out there. I'll be honest, like I've used them all, everybody. The more data you have and the larger your environment, the longer a query is going to take. Which also means the more specific your query and pointed, the faster you'll get a result.
Yeah, and just so as added on to that, so the mindset of a hunter is the more data you have, the more data, whatever products you have there, whether endpoint products, email products, network products, from a hunter's point of view, give them all of the data so that they can find what they need.
And again, like, and that applies to investigators too, right? Honestly, because it goes back to what we talked about, like those multiple signals and like pairing up multiple weak signals to get a strong signal. That's how we're starting to look at the cybersecurity, environment, like in terms of signals and stuff. And I think that's where you see the benefit, right? Multiple small signals from multiple pieces of your environment tying together to show you something is going on that's bad.
And that's where you're tying together. When they mean by weak signal, this is some information or some data that comes into you that in of itself might mean very little. And if you look at a lot of them, it's like great, but not telling them anything. But when you connect different weak signals from, let's say, different sources, like a weak signal from endpoint, a weak signal from email, and you connect them through either like someone with Kevin's intelligence and experience or AI models or tools, you can then connect those and start to say, wow, when I see this signal and that signal, it starts to mean something.
Yeah, absolutely. And like in the process execution example, right? Like just because we see that like this shouldn't be happening itself is only a signal, right? Like that may only be like a weak or like, let's say like a medium signal or something like that, right? Like you have to look at other sources of information to confirm that there was an attack, right? So like the threat hunt is usually just the start. Like the threat hunt finds the small piece and then like it kicks off an investigation every time, right? Like, because when you find, like when the threat hunt uncovers something, you have to do a full investigation, right? You want to know exactly step by step what happened, right? You want the root cause analysis so you can fix it. You want to know what they touched in the 6 months they were there, right? You want all of it. So like threat hunts will lead to investigations if they're successful usually. So yeah, so here in Adlumin, we go to our, again, like handy dandy analysis tool. We can go to the research, or if you want, you can go to like endpoint hunt if you're just looking for endpoint specific data. Like in this case, we know that like process execution is really only going to be an endpoint thing, right? You don't get process executions from your Cisco routers or your Palo Alto firewalls. And then what you can do here is like, this is where you would put in your string, right? So like earlier we were looking for, let's say like process execution where like UAC was disabled, right? So we look for, let's just say like process.
Well, and type it in, no typos. Let's
say event ID 1 and UAC true. Or like, we'll show you first, like event ID 1, show me all. Event ID 1, for those who don't know, is like on Windows systems, that's the sysmon process execution log. So every time you run anything on your computer, it'll start at least one process usually, like a lot of times like dozens. So you can imagine one box has a lot of those. So we're just going to show first, just as an example, like you can start really specific or you can get big and deep dive down, right? So here's an example of process execution. Yep, what returned here are just all process execution logs. So if we look in here, we can see like work groups and stuff like that. And here we can see like what's the application that actually ran it. So here it's like, again, like I don't know this for like OS query, I know is like an open source framework that allows you to query across multiple different types of devices, including like Mac OS, Windows, and Linux.
Yeah, one of the new query languages, right?
Yep. You can use a standardized query language, but like these are things you have to know if this is normal, right? So then we look through this and so OS query, okay, that's normal, right? But where is it running from? Because OS query could be used by an attacker, right? It allows you to run remote commands and pull files and query things through it. Like it can be used like PowerShell, let's say.
Yeah, so that's a living off the land tool because it is now standard in a lot of systems. So seeing it doesn't mean anything. Could be a leaf.
Yep. So we're going to keep jumping back, right? Okay, whatever. This is probably the version, right? You know this because you use Windows for years and years and years. Okay, another like components. That's just a portion of the application. Then we see MSP agent. Okay, so this makes sense, right? Like let's say an MSP has their software deployed on the system. They're using OS query as they should be probably, right? As the backend to do like cross-system compatible queries. Yeah, okay, checks out, right? Like that's probably not malicious. what we could do is then like go and query this further, right? So we would look for, like, if you thought this was suspicious or you really wanted to be super sure it wasn't a false negative that you've just, you know, kind of decided on this one log, um, you would go and look at like the user that ran it, right? So was the user that ran this like a user that was expected? So for something like a system application, right? This isn't a user running OS query. This is like the system doing it. We would expect it to be run at like the system level, right? So we'll go and we'll check our event log, integrity level system. Oh, user, there we go. MT authority system. Okay. So like everything's checking out so far, right? Other things you could check out here, right? Parent process we were talking about. So here we have, luckily Adlumin does this for you. I don't think like the regular Windows Event ID does this, but it'll tell you the parent process executable as well. So like usually I think the event ID might only give you the parent process like ID or the GUID. And then you have to like reverse search it. So, but here we can see like the parent image was generic asset interrogator.exe. And we can see like, okay, that ran out of the same, right, out of the MSP agent components, right? So like, yeah, it makes sense that a piece of the application ran another piece of the application. Again, like depending on what you're seeing and what's running, you look here at the process create names, right? And you go through and you see like, you know, sometimes something might be exposed here. You might be familiar with the application and know what these options are. Because this is OS query, we know that we can like take this string right here and like we know this is actually what the OS query was looking for. So like just based on this, like having been a hacker and like knowing how hackers work, like, yeah, this can be an initial recon that they're using this tool for, right? Like they wanted to get all this so that they can build a profile of the device. Or the more likely scenario is that this is being used by an MSP for inventory control, right?
Hey, Kevin, as you're going through this, you highlighted a couple things here. So one is you showed me the endpoint, just the endpoint data or the syslogs that you're going through. Another one was more of a generic hunting. So I had a question from our listeners, our attendees here. One is is all we're doing is collecting syslogs across and that's all you're using for hunting?
No. So that we're just trying to show you a simple example. For hunting, you could look at, let's say, cloud application logs that are being sent out. Here, we're not looking at syslogs. These are event logs. You could use syslogs as well, right? If it's a firewall that's exporting syslog, you can do it across any data source, any security relevant data sources, I call it pretty much.
Yeah. And so just for everyone is that we have a SIM, we're collecting a lot of data. We call it integrations in our portal. And when we look at integrations, we are collecting them across, and you can configure to collect them across network, across endpoint security products, across the window event logs, across email, you name it. If there's telemetry out there that is of interest, then what you're typically doing is setting up an integration. We have, more than 52 by default, and then some that are generic. You can send any source. And that's what the information that Kevin is using for integrations. So
yes.
let's go on with here. What else you got here?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out which part of the demo to show you next because we're going into it deep, but I figure you guys are here to learn how a threat hunter works and like maybe pick up some stuff. So like now you're kind of seeing like how you can go through it, right?
Yeah, just what the appetite of those on the line that want to follow along. And so you show a little bit of difference between investigation and hunting, and they're asking about capabilities within our portal, but show a little bit more.
Yeah. So we showed this example and I'll show you how I did this, right? So going back to this, this is every event log or every process execution over the past, like, let's say 2 days, right? How did I get it? Oh, easy. So I just go to Adlumin and I download a CSV. Boom. But like the reason we do this is because this is small because it's a demo environment. It's not real. It's fake data we use for testing and fun. But like even this has 44,000 entries and I can't go through 44,000 entries and keep it in my head. And it's just not possible. So what you do is you pretty much you'll export your data to a CSV. If you're not super technical, or you're not a scripting guy, but you're still a cybersecurity pro who's trying to do threat hunting, or you're just trying to get your feet wet, try just, go through Adlumin, do things like sort and filter the data if you're looking for something specific, but like try to just go into like an Excel spreadsheet, right? And muck around with the data and stuff like that and pull events that way. If you don't know Python and know how to make like a visualization that helps you through it or something like that. But what we do is like we download that, right? Like we have the CSV, here we go. From there, right? Essentially, we're just like setting for processes here. We set like a score, right? Like if there's less than, this many seen across the environment, right? Like we're going to print the suspicious findings. And eventually like we would get back with, again, like, do we have it?
So you took the CSV, you downloaded the CSV within the portal. You then applied a Python script that you typically use. I'd call it your toolkit or playbook that you then run over through it and create a way to view that data.
Yep, absolutely. And like, again, like it generates, like we generated the output here. And again, this is not like, we're not doing complex computer programming. This is just like simple stuff. So what you would do then is like, you would figure out like, we go here, we see, so going through this, like different ones are slightly like, that's why we started this. We started going through like, some of these are actually a little bit suspicious. So I want to tell you some of these aren't suspicious because like they would trigger me to sort of look at it. But like the big one that I first keyed in on was the SVC host to install util. So like what I would then do is like go into my data set, look at the host that had that, pull the specific host name, go look for that specific process, in Adlumin. So like, let's say, again, like for part of our threat hunt, let's say we wanted to see all processes that were process name. So we want to do like process name and parent process name, right? So show me all processes that had event ID 1 and just copy paste. Process name is let's see, cmd.exe, and because like command prompt's always suspicious, man. It's either an admin or it's suspicious. It's never a user. And we want to know, like, let's say parent process name.
Yeah, I made an interesting comment there. It's not necessarily the user, it's the admin that'll be the suspicious one.
Sure, yeah. I don't know if we want to ask in chat, but like, does anybody have a parent process they want us to look at? Like SVC host.
You're going to get an answer for that.
Yeah.
So I've already got a question. Joshua says, hey, can you share that Python script with me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We'll either try to put out a blog post or I'll.
Yeah, let's do a blog post. Yeah, let's do a blog post. So if you don't mind on that. So Joshua, great question for his script. We'll have to get it vetted, of course, and caveat it to death that if it crashes your environment, we're not responsible. Beyond that, yeah, look for a quick blog post and Kevin will post something for you. So just pick one, Kevin, because we're going to wrap up soon. Answer some questions that are coming up, but.
Okay, let's see if this one's malicious. No whammy, or we want whammy. Okay, so we have command.exe being launched by parent execution image service host. Message. Nope, normal.
Well, one statement you made is when you did your stacking or your sorting and counting, so your frequency analysis, if you will, you talk about service host launching the install, which one was the SVC host launching install. So why was that? Why did you think that was malicious, or why did that stand out as something for you to do further investigation on?
Because usually like the install util is going to be proxied by the application that's either like updating or the application that's installing the application, in which case like for Windows would be like explorer.exe or something like that, right? The GUI, because you're going to double click on the app and install it. Or maybe you're going to use the command prompt and install it via the command line, right? So it's going to say command line to install util, or it's PowerShell to install util, or your RMM utility to install util, or like Chrome to install util if it's updating maybe. But like SVCOs to install util now, like SVCOs shouldn't be directly launching programs like that. Other weird ones would be like wscript.exe to run DLL32.exe. Like there was a huge wave of folks using like wscript.exe on Windows, which native application, to run, oh God, it's not JavaScript, it's actually J-code, which is different. Like J-code exploits and stuff like that. So like for a while, like, and the way you would find it was to like go through all your wscript executions and see like where they were executed from. And like when you see something running run DLL32, that means it's loading like a DLL library. So right, it's like adding extra functionality into the existing process, or like starting it with that functionality. So then like you would pull up that original process execution log and then look and see like, okay, what was it sourcing, right? Like what was it loading where and why?